Hey, everybody. Thank you for joining us for the Merchant Sales Podcast. Patty, I think we had a good episode today with a topic we've never talked about before.
I think our entire episode was very educational this week.
I agree. So tell us
But
how we started out.
yeah, great way. And I think that what Greg has is something I've always thought about in the back of my mind, but never quite, understood how it could be done. And I think he provides a really good case for taking the relationship to that next level.
Yeah. And then in the questions from the field, I share some really practical kind of sales presentation tips about dual pricing, specifically cash discounting and all that. But kind of moving away from the presentation of we're passing the cost of processing onto the customer, which has a bit of a negative connotation, and bring a different approach to the way you're communicating that. So definitely check that out. And I thought the insiders report was very insightful. Tell us a little bit about that, Patty.
Yeah, some really interesting investments and developments in terms of new technologies to facilitate payments. I think you're going to find it really interesting. It's not necessarily in the SMB market, but as Greg
It's going to
pointed
get there.
out in our interview with him, things are flowing down from the big guys to the smaller guys at a much more rapid clip. So it's cool to keep abreast of these things. And our episode today is brought to you by ISOAMP. You can find out more at getisoamp.com.
Let's go. Hey, everybody. Patty and I are here today with Greg Amuth, who is the CEO at Popcodes. How you doing today, Greg?
I'm great, James. How are you?
Doing fantastic.
Great name for a company, Greg.
Yeah,
thank you very much,
Popcodes.
Patty.
Very cool.
Great to meet you as well.
So this is going to be a very interesting conversation. We definitely never talked about this on our podcast before. We're going to talk about the ISOs and agents getting that direct communication to their merchants through the point of sale device, the terminal specifically in this case, and kind of what you do along those lines. A very unique concept. Before we dive into that though, Greg, I always like to hear the story of our kind of interviewee. Like, how did you get into this business and what led you to Popcodes?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, James. Again, appreciate the time. I've been in retail and financial services, and more so specifically payments, really all my career. Last almost 30 years. It's hard to believe. Mostly with big tier one retailers. Started my first corporate job with Domino's Pizza at their headquarters when they grew from 300 locations to 3,000. I helped start Borders Books and Music, even before they were Borders. Spent several years there. But prior to starting Popcodes, I was with Macy's, and I was responsible for building the 360-degree view of the customer across both the credit and two retail brands, Macy's and Bloomingdale's, and enabling that for omni-channel marketing. As I was getting ready to leave Macy's, I actually met my now wife. She lives in Canada, and I started to experience that customer-facing checkout experience that Canada and Europe has been doing for a while with the smart terminals, and thought that if we could bring some of the capabilities and the omni-channel marketing strategies that we had at the tier one retailers down to the SMB and enabling that kind of capabilities across thousands of SMBs via the payment device, that we could really solve some great problems, help lots of merchants, and build a successful business in the payment space as well.
So I think before we dive into this topic too deep, this one, frankly, is so different and unique to our audience. Greg, I think it would be helpful to just give us the overview, kind of the elevator pitch of what exactly do you do? How does this work?
Yeah. So, the newest generation of payment devices are basically a smartphone with a layer of security and a printer on it, right? So they're very powerful devices in terms of communication, but they're very underutilized in that capacity. They are primarily used for just credit and debit payment.
Right.
When we were bringing value-added solutions, the omni-channel, promotion tracking and points redemption and other things to market at first, we realized that there was a major challenge in that value-added solutions lifecycle, and that was getting the acquirers and ISOs comfortable with bringing value-added solutions to the table, especially third-party ones, communicating to merchants, helping enable training and support to those merchants. And we sort of shifted gears and said, instead of selling solutions to merchants and helping that that merchant today, let's put that a few years into the future and focus on helping acquirers and ISOs connect with, build better communication channels to merchants, and leveraging that in-store device. And so, just like a smartphone, those devices can be updated remotely. They can be, they can have messages pushed to them, especially the newest Android devices. Unlike the smartphones, there's very few applications that can actually do that. And so our application leverages the power of that internet-connected device and drives communications both in a self-serve mode and in an automated, more of a campaign strategy approach, to that device.
That's really cool. I mean, the concept is very, very cool. I mean, I hadn't really quite thought of it before until you said that. It's like there's all that power in that device that can be used. Can you maybe give us a sense of some of the use cases, in terms of the type of communications an ISO might have with their merchants, through a terminal device?
Yeah, it really covers the full life cycle. So the very first example is an unboxing experience, creating a custom digital walkthrough of how to set up and activate the device, how to set up your account, communicating again in a scripted manner through that device the moment the merchant turns it on, when they first get it in store. From that point forward, there's a range of self-serve use cases where merchants can look up training information, support information, new product and service information right on the device if it's really quick and easy, or through a QR code linking back to the website. So that's kind of that first phase of the use case. Once you get that initial communication and that merchant awareness, and that happens very quick. Within a couple days, you're starting to see that merchant interacting with the application. Then it becomes a perfect channel for driving awareness and enrollment in value-added solutions. A merchant, a small merchant is heavily influenced. Even very large merchants are very heavily influenced by their store managers or the key holders. We say in retail. Right. Those people that open the door each morning are key in both using the payment processing services effectively and making decisions about who they should be using and other value-added services they need. Mm-hmm. And we have what's called a power-up campaign that's on that device the moment the store opens, so that merchant can see that latest information. It might be an operational message telling them about a new feature or function or an upcoming outage, but ideally it's something that drives a deeper and longer lasting, more profitable relationship, like cash advance, cash discount, gift and loyalty programs, all of those value-added solutions that the industry analysts have been saying for years are essential for these processors to establish with their merchant portfolios.
So what you're saying then is actually, I'm sorry, James, if I can just real quickly, it's really it's a two-way. It's not just a one-way communication, right? It's a two-way communication that you're facilitating here.
Yes, absolutely. It's an automated message on the outbound side communicated to the merchants, and then it gives the merchant the opportunity to provide feedback. That might be a merchant satisfaction score. It might be a answer to a survey of the products and services they need. It might be updated phone numbers. It might be who else needs to get a statement. Things like that. Any type of bi-directional communication that they might have typically done over the phone or attempted to do via email, mm-hmm. We can enable with a much higher efficiency right to that in-store device.
Yeah, I love that. I think it's super interesting. I think it's also, I will say, a potentially very valuable distribution channel for you to build, right? Absolutely. The ability to say, hey, we can send a push notification to 1 million merchants or whatever is super interesting. So let's talk about retention for a minute. I know you were doing some things with Sebastian from Arcum. Yeah. So talk about that a little bit. Like how does this how can this be set up to impact retention?
Yeah. So when you look at all the industry analysis of what's driving a merchant's likelihood to attrit, it's their pricing, it's their dissatisfaction with customer care, it's their lack of awareness of other value-added services. So when somebody competitor calls and says, "Hey, we can do this for you," they don't know that they could get that from their current provider, right? Right. And so driving that awareness in general is really essential to creating that satisfaction. Merchants want innovative solutions. They want to solutions that are easy for their associates to learn, easy for them to use, and our automation enables all that. But that there's an incredible new level of power that comes when you combine it with a model-driven identification of a merchant that's at risk and their cause. And the reason is we can use the data and we can use those model scores to change the content and change the messaging that a merchant receives, so that well before you have to, make that call and try to beg them to stay, you're starting to communicate with them in advance, starting to communicate with the store associates as well about, did you know that there's these capabilities? So if you think that they're at risk, or the model score tells you that they're at risk because of a product feature or function miss, you can address that right away. If they're dissatisfied with their pricing, you can give them the opportunity to give you that feedback to confirm, first of all, are they happy with their pricing, and then take an action accordingly. So our application enables that messaging of that targets the specific category for the risk, but then also says, let's collect some more information, because those models are driven by data, right?
By
So
assumptions, you got to validate.
Yeah, so if you think they're at risk because of merchant satisfaction, send them a merchant satisfaction score.
Yeah,
if they score you low, take action immediately, right? Don't wait for a call center associate to be able to get in touch with somebody 10, 15 calls later. Hit them the next day.
Yeah.
So let me see if I can restate this and see if I got it right. So for those that don't know, Arkham Partners, run by Sebastian Biles, they have the algorithms and mathematics to look at a lot of variables in a portfolio and say, here are the accounts that are most likely to cancel. And what you're saying, I think, if I understood, and why, right, and why. And I think what I hear you saying, Greg, is there's two components to this that could help. One is just by having an ongoing communication with that merchant, they're actually going to be less likely to attrit anyway, just because they're communicating with you and they're aware of what's happening. There's that open line of communication. And secondly, in the situation where you identify a high potential person that may cancel, that's going to be based on assumptions. And by then sending communication to the terminal, you're giving the merchant the opportunity to validate those assumptions of, are they happy? Are they not happy? Are there concerns? Is that kind of what you're saying?
Yeah, absolutely. And wherever that model score comes from, you basically just know this audience, this B2B community needs to hear a different message, right? They need to be more, they need to be more aware of a product or service. They need to maybe have a new agent assigned to them or something. And again, the most likely process today is that information, especially if you're a large acquirer ISO, gets sent to an inside call customer care retention team.
Right.
They try to call and email that person. Very, very inefficient, very ineffective. Calling SMB merchants, they don't want to spend time on the phone. They want their customers they want to be talking to their customers. Right. If you can communicate in those, precious few minutes between the time when they open the door and between they take their first sale, you've got the right audience at the right time. And with a model, you can deliver the right message. And that really is, the epitome of marketing strategy.
So let's talk about the content flow for a minute. So Greg, we have the situation where content of different kinds, whether it be training, promotional content, surveys, whatever, right? This is flowing to the device, to the terminal device, where the merchant's going to see it when they open the doors. Where does this content come from? Is the content flow coming from you, from your company? Can the ISO create their own content? Like, how does this work as far as the flow of content?
Today, we create both the content and the campaigns as part of our onboarding of those clients. A lot of times, those digital assets are already something that's on their website, or maybe training and support material that the hardware manufacturers or the point of sale solution provider or the payment app provider has already created. And what we do is we consolidate that into very small bite-sized chunks, so that the merchant can, or the store associate can, very quickly get the high-level information they need. And then if there is a training video, or if there's a documentation, we'll provide a QR code to link that user on their mobile phone to get off the payment device, because that's got to be ready for payments very quickly, and then drill down into that other content on their mobile phone. So we drive traffic to the acquirer ISO's website. We drive traffic in a targeted and a very specific way, so that you don't get your merchant searching for how do I, replace a cable on a PAX A920? Because as soon as they do that, they're going to get bombarded with competitive merchant services offers, and very likely that they're going to get the wrong information, right? So you want to deliver that content to the device so it's instantly available. There's no lag time at all for the merchant or the store associate to get those quick answers, and then you want to direct them in a very controlled way to a destination where they can drill down further.
So what you're saying then is that they're actually going to drill down from for lack of a better term, the Google search, right from the terminal.
Yeah, the terminal gives them very quick, simple
And
access to
it's
the
sort of
content.
pre-programmed in there to specific types of questions. Okay, that's really cool.
Yeah, and Patty, I think you hit on a key area. Yeah, we start off in the beginning with a kind of relatively consistent template.
Mm-hmm.
It's all customized and all personalized. So our application, all the colors, every menu name, and every screen can be fully customized very quickly.
Okay.
But what you do is you learn after a few months. Here's the content that people are accessing most. Let's move that up to another level of menu. Here's the content that's not really getting access. One of our clients, one of the highest access contents over the last couple of years is literally how to clean my terminal, right? And so we put that right up on the top. And then once a month we run a campaign that says, remember, use these products, don't use these products, to make sure that your current terminal is disinfected but not damaged.
Right.
And then you again layer in more of that automated messaging around products and services,
Right.
so that you're driving awareness in the Power Up campaign, but then they can self-serve and discover through the network of menus as well whenever they're ready to learn more.
Okay, quick follow-up then, because I'm sure this is on the mind. It's kind of foremost in my mind. I'm sure it is in many people listening right now. What terminals do you integrate with? Are there others on the roadmap? And how complex is it to integrate with these terminals?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So first of all, we've made it very easy. It's kind of a cloud and an app hybrid solution. All the content and all the business logic and all the workflows are managed in the cloud. The screens and the sequences are controlled by the app on the terminal. So it's basically a thin client, but a structured thin client on the terminal. And it can be ported very easily across essentially any terminal.
Any terminal.
Today, our largest deployments are actually on Ingenico Tetra terminals, because we have an HTML5 version of our application. But going forward, we're seeing the vast majority of the devices be Android devices, PAX, AMP, thinking about Castle, all those points, those devices we have versions for today. But if somebody comes up and says, here's the terminal that I want to support, we do a quick collision testing, of an Android version. As long as it's a Android 7 or higher, the instant notification features work, and we can basically create a white label version on any Android terminal within a month or so. And at that time, we can go through and create all the content in parallel. So the time to market is extremely fast. And in the end, you get a very customized solution. And if you start in day one with a focus on digital unboxing and on some of the self-serve stuff, and then you want to add features in the future, you don't have to redeploy the app. You just go into the cloud and add new workflows and new menu options and new content, and they automatically get distributed to all the devices that share that template in a matter of hours with same application in place. Our application also doesn't require any payment application integration. So there's no PCI impact. There's no complex integration from that standpoint. We do have features that do like consumer facing functions like the points redemption and promotion redemption and those types of things that can benefit from that payment apps integration, but you don't have to do that day one.
So obviously, this is a model where kind of your client is generally going to be the ISO, right? And the ISO is, getting this service from you to provide to their merchant so that the ISO can communicate with a merchant, both using your, pre-configured template information of, for instance, you may have a library of how to use a particular PAX terminal, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And then they're also going to put their own custom content in there about maybe value-added services. So now that we understand that kind of piece of it, talk about the economic model a little bit. I know you can't go super specific here on the pricing and all that, but just so the ISOs kind of understand, what does a partnership with your company look like as far as if they wanted to provide this to their merchants?
Yeah. So, our target is to be extremely, cost effective, and deliver, 5, 10, 20 times ROI, based on how many use cases you deploy. We typically say, start thinking about it about $1 per device per month. But, again, the larger number of larger acquirers, that price can go down, significantly. As we start to collect more data, we can start to price at the merchant level. So we can start it in an honest mode and not even know which device is associated with which merchant. Makes it really easy because we don't have to get merchant profile data from the acquirer ISO. But once they are able to provide that information to us, then we can do some consolidation and show that these 5 devices are at one merchant. So we'll bundle that price, and it also then gives them the opportunity to do much more targeted content. So
Right.
The convenience stores would get this kind of campaign. The dry cleaners or the grocery stores or the restaurants would get another type of campaign, so that they start to see those value-added solutions and the support content that's appropriate and most needed by that business vertical.
So this might be a rather stupid question, but it just kind of popped into my head.
There's no stupid questions.
There really are,
We
actually.
love
But
things that
we'll
pop.
leave that for another.
Okay, I correct myself. I have heard a few in my life, but usually not on this podcast.
Yeah, right. Hopefully not. But so okay, I'm an ISO. I have 1,000 mids.
Yep.
I sign up with you, and we're going to pay something like $1,000 a month, to put this out there, because they're all smart. Obviously, they wouldn't all be smart terminals, but let's assume that they were.
Yep.
What's next? I actually also in my mind, I'm like, wait a minute, what's happening? Am I asking all my merchants to download an app, or like what happens?
Yeah. So we give you a white labeled version of an app and a content package that goes to whatever estate management tool you use, and that pushes that app to the device in field. It's automatically activated. There's no merchant training. It just shows up the next time the device reboots, greets the merchant with a message and says, hey, you got a new self-help capability now. You can find information right on this terminal. Here's how you get to it.
Okay.
Then
cool.
As those ISOs and acquirers, they want to bring these value-added solutions to the table, but communicating to merchants about these value-added solutions, supporting the value-added solutions, driving referrals, all of those are really difficult processes today. With our application, you identify value-added solution that you want to bring to the table. We could drive a survey to the merchants to say who's interested. We can drive communication to them saying here's something that might interest you. We can enable the automated referral so that third-party partner gets the email or contact information from merchants that say they want to get contacted, which solves a big problem in the whole value-added solution space. Nobody wants to tell you, here's all the merchants that I support today, go sell to them, right? So there's that challenge, and it helps you track which merchants are interested in which value-added solutions, or which merchants have actually enrolled and started to use these, so that those ISOs can get the revenue share that they're due most of the time from those solution providers as well.
Yeah, good point.
You can add on things like supply ordering for papers and accessories. All those things, again, just deepen the relationship with the merchant, give you an opportunity to continue to increase the revenue per merchant, and differentiate yourself from just a transaction fee kind of revenue model to more sticky, more longer lasting revenue, and enable that ongoing direct to merchant communication that's essential for retention and growth.
Love it. So lastly here, before we jump off, this has been super interesting. But I want to make sure we give our audience some information on how to follow up. Now, you mentioned a white label app and all that. Like, I'm assuming you're mainly looking for ISOs, not necessarily the individual agent here. Maybe correct me if I'm wrong, but give us a little bit of information on where our audience should go if they want to learn more about working with you guys.
Yeah, so if you have a large card present merchant portfolio and you either are already deploying or looking to deploy smart terminals, you can reach out to me at Popcodes. You can go visit our website, popcodes.com, and kind of see some video examples and some use cases. We'll talk to you very quickly, through what your major priorities are, and the pain points that you'd want to hit first, and again give you a pretty firm idea in the pricing and go to market timeline. It's going to be $1 or less, and you could go live in about 90 days in most cases, and then we build a roadmap from there. So we'll assign a customer success manager that'll help you see how merchants are using your self-serve support capabilities, see the effectiveness of the campaigns, and then you continue to grow and optimize the service from there.
Just real quickly, just to clarify, that's $1 per mid per month.
So if we are synchronizing merchant data and we know the TID mid association, then it would be at the merchant level. If it's anonymous and we just know you have 10,000 terminals, but we don't know which mids they are associated to, it's at the TID level.
Okay. Yep. Good stuff. And that website again was Popcodes. Just like it sounds, actually, I just looked it up. It's pretty cool. popcodes.com. Check it out. Reach out to them to learn more. Greg, thank you so much for taking time out of your schedule to talk to our audience today. I thought that was actually super interesting, and I have a feeling you'll be getting some calls.
Great. Yeah, thanks for your time. And we'll see you at the industry conferences. We'll have a big presence at ETA Transact coming up here in April. I'm easy to find online. I'm literally the only Greg Amick in North America.
I suspect that might be the case. I'm not the only Patty Murphy, but I may be the only Patty Murphy at the Northeast Acquirers. So if you're there, please
right, exactly.
say hi.
I'll look you up, Patty.
Sure. Thank you.
Thanks, Greg. Have a great day.
Thank you.
So Patty, I love that one of the companies I own, ISOAMP, is the sponsor of the Merchant Sales Podcast for the first part of this year. And I've been enjoying highlighting some of it. I want to just touch on the obvious one today, and that is statement analysis.
Okay. Yeah.
I was talking to Matt Markham, who currently runs our sales department for that company. And he was saying how amazing it is that he'll be doing a demo for someone, and usually they'll send him a statement, prior to the demo so he can show them how we do that statement.
Right.
And he will upload it. And then, we have a human right now that will look at every single statement. And he said before the demo is even barely begun, they say, hey, I just got an email back that says the statement was already done. And that, and they want to pull it up and look through it. And, the bottom line is we've put millions of dollars and tens of thousands of hours of time into perfecting statement analysis. Today I spent an hour and a half with our lead developer on another huge improvement that's going to dramatically increase efficiency that we're building right now. We're moving towards offering instant, fully automated statement analysis services to our clients, but we want to make sure that we keep accuracy at the forefront.
Right.
And so to us, the constraints that we had when we started, we still have today. And those two constraints are, if a client sends us a statement, we will do all of the work, and we will do it every single time. You send us a statement, it will be done. You send it to us and it's a little crooked, the data entry team will work on it. You send us a native PDF, that's going to be even better. Our automated AI is going to pull the text out. You send us a statement, just this morning. I hardly do very much with the statement analysis business anymore because I have a really good team running it, but I dove into a QuickBooks statement because this morning I saw the first QuickBooks statement, which I think had some kind of, differential pricing, and there was a big credit on there. Yeah. And it was kind of like, oh wow, we hadn't seen that before. And so when we get a statement we haven't seen before, then it goes up the chain, and I'm 3 levels up now, but sometimes I still get stuff that comes to me and says, hey, what do we do with this? And so we built a new automation, and we got that statement done. And so number one is we get the statement done, and number two is accuracy. Right. And so the reason that we never initially said, oh, we'll do instant, whatever, or because accuracy. Like we want to make sure that I want to sleep at night knowing that my clients got their statements back and that they're accurate.
Right.
And so we've been building and building and building and building, and we have so many checks and balances and validation errors and all these things to make sure that what we send out is right. And now we finally are at a point where in the next few months, you'll hear some announcements about how now we have fully automated and instant turnaround on a lot of the statement types, but we didn't do that until we were at a point where we were super confident in the accuracy. And even when that rolls out, that doesn't mean if it's not automated that we're not going to do it. No,
Right.
if it's
No.
not automated, the human analysts who are experts are going to jump in. They're going to get it done. And so we have an incredible team. I looked at the numbers yesterday. We did 267 statements yesterday.
Yesterday.
In
Wow.
one day. That was with about 94.5% of the work being automated.
Automated. Wow.
Right. And the rest of it being done by a human. And so there's a lot of work that goes into it. There's a lot of processes and procedures. It's incredibly complicated and expensive to build all of that out, but we have it now. We've solved that problem. There's no reason for you to do it yourself anymore. There's just not.
And you've put so many years into it. I mean, you've been working on this, I think, almost as long as we've been doing these podcasts.
Longer,
Which-
actually.
probably.
I started this one 6 years ago.
Well, and it was about 5 years ago or
we
so
started-
that we
started
started
working
doing
together.
this. So yeah,
Yep.
but I remember when watching you sit over, poring over statements, trying to come up
Yep.
with, ways to analyze. And
Yep.
so
Yeah.
you've come a long way, my friend.
Been a
but
journey
it's-
of love. So if you want to get more information about the leader in statement analysis, we sign up on an average month right now. We'll sign up 15 to 25 new ISOs, not agents, ISOs,
Wow.
that will do our statement analysis service. We're by far and away the leader in this category. Go to getisoamp.com, getisoamp.com, getisoamp.com. Matt Markham from my team or somebody else will be glad to follow up, give you a demo, help you learn more about what we have to offer. So thank you so much. Let's get back to the
Thank you.
podcast episode. So Patty, today in questions from the field, I want to talk about selling, dual pricing, and cash discounting, and the core beliefs that kind of go into making that sale. I haven't talked about this in a long, long time. And the reason this came to my attention is I just had a consulting call with a ISO that's building a W-2 sales team. And so I'm working with them on that.
Mhm.
And I was talking to their sales manager, and we were kind of kicking some ideas around about how he's going to train the new agents to sell. They're going to be offering dual pricing. They're going to sell Valor Paytech and Clover. And so we were talking about some of that. And I started giving a little bit of an answer to some of the questions about pitch. And I wanted to bring that back up today. So
Yeah.
when you're out in the field selling, this idea of passing the cost of processing onto the consumer, I really, really dislike that.
And it's interesting because in the beginning, that was my biggest complaint about this.
Yeah.
Because it sounds a little shady, right? Like a
Yeah.
little
Well,
shystery.
it's negative.
Yeah, it's negative.
It's a
right.
negative thing. You're saying, and I think this idea that business owners, I've talked about this a lot of times, but business owners, ultimately, they're not like that attracted to the idea of being able to trick their customers into paying their
No.
processing fees. That's
None
not
of they're responsible,
Right.
decent people.
Right.
Right.
So I think a couple of things that are kind of underlying beliefs that you really want to have as you're getting out in the field and selling dual pricing.
Uh-huh.
Number one is that it is the right thing for the merchant to do. And
Okay.
what I mean by that is from a business logic, everybody
Mhm.
knows it's the right thing for the agent and the processor. I mean, it's really profitable and all that. But as far as for the merchant, the merchant is not going to lose business. We've seen that. One of the interesting stats, I was just doing a keynote, and one company said that they had signed up a very large number. I won't give the exact number, but a very large number of merchant accounts through their call center. And the first interesting statistic was that I think it was 94% of all these accounts were on like dual pricing. So that was pretty staggering.
That's
But
very-
the even more interesting number was they actually had less than 0.5% of those merchants had switched back to traditional pricing during the year.
wow,
which is
that's
insane.
really remarkable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, this isn't like 10. This is like a large, massive data set and huge company. And so less than 0.5% had switched back to traditional. And they actually, part of their pitch is giving them that option. I mean, it's not like they're holding them hostage. They literally say, give
Right.
it a
You
shot,
don't like
try it.
Try it.
We'll switch back. And,
Yeah.
and nobody switches back. So it's the right thing for the merchant, but then we got to go to a deeper level here and say that it's also the fair thing to do for the consumer, for the customer.
Yes, that's the really key point.
Yeah. And when you think about that, what I mean by that is every merchant in America is passing the cost of processing onto the
Mhm.
consumer. Every single one. I don't care if they're doing surcharging, dual pricing, traditional pricing, cash discounting, whatever. It doesn't matter.
Doesn't
The,
matter.
the business is paying the processing fees out of the revenue that's collected from the pricing.
Right.
So the question isn't, should the merchant pass the cost of processing onto the consumer? The question is, how should they do it? What is the fair way to do it?
Right.
Right.
Should, or put another way, should the cash paying customer pay the cost of the card for
Exactly.
people that use their
Exactly.
cards?
And then we could even drill down deeper, Patty, on that, because we could say, well, we know that those in America who have the least, who are underbanked. Now, there's a lot of people who have a lot of money that still like to pay cash, right? Of course.
Right.
But statistically,
Statistically,
there's a higher probability that if you're paying cash, you're someone who is underbanked, meaning
Right.
you don't have access to even get a cashback rewards card or a travel
Right.
point reward card.
Right.
And so the real question could be, should the people who have the least pay a little bit more so that the people that have the most can pay a little bit less?
Right.
And the answer to that question is no.
No, it's not fair.
It's not
It's
fair.
not fair.
So when you come at it from that perspective with the merchant and your pitch is centered around that, it's
Mhm.
going to be much better for you. And so the kind of two pillars that I have found that it's interesting, Patty, because to your point, when we started talking about it, these pillars were not at all part of my pitch. But now the two pillars that I kind of build the pitch or the presentation on is, number one is the familiarity part of it. And what I mean by that is, I used to say, oh, there's this new thing, cutting edge, very few people even are doing this yet. It's like, well, that's a
It's like-
stupid thing to say.
This has been around since 1970s, really.
Right.
You
Fuel
know?
stations have been having differential pricing for years, the
Right.
cash card price. This is nothing new. So I build on that and I say, have you ever been to a fuel station that had cash in the card price? Yes, I have. What did you think about that? Well, they probably don't want to pay credit card processing fees. Exactly. Do you
Right.
want to pay credit card processing fees? No. Okay, great. So I build it on familiarity. And then the second thing I build it on is this concept of fairness and this idea that, look, you're already passing the cost of processing on. And the thing I'll ask them is I'll say, look, if you found out tomorrow that the cost of building rent, or if you're a restaurant, your cost of food or payroll cost, if one of those core costs increased by 30, 40%, what would you do about that?
Mhm.
Well, I'd probably do a price increase. Okay. How would you increase the price of everything? Well, yeah. Well, now the reason you would do that is because having the electricity on, or having a building to go to, or, having
Can't do
employees,
the rest of the work.
everybody, every single customer is going to benefit from that.
Right.
Right. And so you increase the price for everybody, but payment processing costs go up year after year after year after year. It's time for you to do a tiny price increase for, payment processing to cover those costs. But we don't want to do that across the board because it doesn't impact everybody. The people that are paying with cash, let's keep them at that lower price.
Mhm.
Let's make a differential price like the fuel stations have done with success, and do that with the knowledge that every single one of your customers at some point in their life has gone to a gas station that had a cash and a card price. They didn't
That's
drive
right.
away. They put their
Right.
card in, they paid the higher price, and they got their fuel. So this is something we've been conditioned for. And if you approach it from that perspective, I think you're going to find that you have a lot more success.
Great advice. Thanks, James. Well, James, it's 3 years on since the pandemic shook up the world of shopping, in addition to
Yep.
our work lives and everything else. It's actually amazing to me to think it's been that long already, but it has. And, obvious side effect of that was that retailers were forced to, pour huge investments into the e-commerce channel.
Right.
And things are beginning to normalize, but, let's be realistic. It's a new normal, right? I
Right,
mean,
right.
for consumers, for example, are returning to brick and mortar stores. The National Retail Federation reports that as of year end 2022, e-commerce accounted for 16.4% of retail shopping, down from 18.8% at the height of the pandemic.
Right.
Which is, that's
Yeah.
it's a significant drop.
Yeah.
For their part, merchants are considering investments in new technologies that streamline the in-store payments. This is something that a recent opinion piece in the Wall Street Journal, in my opinion, accurately described as having been lagged behind other tech investments, investments in payment techs.
Sure.
In the UK, there's a automotive and bike parts chain called Halford Group. They're said to be investigating payments by sound waves. In-store customers using a mobile app would exchange encrypted data with a specially designed POS device to affect payments. Proponents say that the tech can be used to complete credential and payment data exchanges in about half the time it takes with an EMV chip.
What do you say? It's like the old phones where it's like the tone.
Yeah, isn't that? I mean,
That's
it's
kind of
kind of
interesting.
strange, but
Yeah, I never heard of
you
that one. That's
know,
interesting.
and as I understand it, Amazon uses a version of this in its cashierless stores.
Really?
Yeah,
Huh.
the idea is that customers pick up items, and the payments are, on their phone are automatically, added up as they walk through the checkout line. It just says, okay,
Yeah.
Patty picked up, $33.55 worth of groceries, and ding, ding, it's debited to her on file card.
Yeah.
Pretty cool. Pretty
Yeah.
cool. Now here in the US, Kroger, which is, major supermarket chain, is, they're testing out this new shopping cart that's equipped with cameras and sensors that will track what the customer is buying. Thus eliminating the need for checkout scanners.
Kind of the self checkout as you go or something. Like as you put it in the
Exactly.
cart, you scan it or something. I
Yeah,
wonder. I
isn't
don't
that
know.
cool?
I like that.
mean,
Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah, the company's CIO told the Wall Street Journal that Kroger is also considering placing checkouts in individual aisles for customers who want to grab and go, right? Like, I'm sure people at your office will run out to the supermarket, grab something, come
Right.
back to their desk, right?
Yeah.
Don't have to stop at the front of the store. Just do it right there at the sandwich aisle. Pretty cool.
Yeah.
And then the last one I wanted to share was Nordstrom's.
Okay.
And they're investigating a technology we've talked a lot about on this podcast, which is tap to phone, which is what Visa calls it, or tap on phone, which is what MasterCard calls it. Both of these solutions have made headway in developing countries. Visa says its tap to phone solution was a big hit during the World Cup competition in Qatar.
Okay.
This kind of solution, the big piece about it is that it allows SMBs to fast track their digital payment strategies, right? But the take up here in the US has been slow.
Yeah.
Nordstrom CIO pointed out that by eliminating the need for unique payment technologies, they could provide greater flexibility and convenience. For example, allowing sales associates to check out customers wherever they are in the store, or to bust up long lines, right?
Yeah.
For a large retailer with hundreds of stores, that could potentially drive significant savings and greater customer satisfaction. I know I live alone now. But I used to, when I had a family around me, I used to go to Costco all the time.
Yeah.
I used to love it. I'd hate it because I'd go and I'd see this long line, and then a line buster would come along, and I'd be so happy. So according to one survey I saw, tap to go, 83% of consumers surveyed said they would use this tap to go technology to pay.
Yeah,
for
sure.
95% of merchants said they would, including, and this is the most significant data point, 92% of cash only merchants.
Wow. That's really
I think that's a
interesting.
big deal. Like, think about it. When I was reading this, I was thinking about farmers markets, right?
Right. Sure.
How many people in those farmers markets are just taking cash? But
Yeah.
they all carry a phone.
Right. Of course.
Just putting on that app is a piece of cake.
Right. And they don't, as much as Square gained popularity in that market, nobody ever particularly loved the little Square swiper.
No,
The dongle.
nobody does.
The dongle has always been a little bit of a necessary evil, in my opinion.
I agree. And I think that, investment, I mean, these are not really huge investments,
right?
That can really make support a more robust payments infrastructure, more efficient processes.
Yep.
And I think the real interesting thing about this particular set of news items that I'm reporting on this week is that it really shows that despite predictions to the contrary, COVID was not the death knell for retailing.
Right. Right.
You know,
no.
it just created
Yeah.
a bunch of new.
Well, and
of
I
new
think a
opportunities.
great illustration of that would be companies like Facebook and Stripe and others who have done big layoffs lately because well, it's just Shopify was the other one I think, but where they thought, oh, it's all going e-commerce
Right.
and
Right.
this was COVID was the start of a trend that's going to accelerate from here. No, actually
Nope.
went back down to where it was. It may be a little bit of an improvement.
And maybe it'll increase, a 1% or 2% every
Yeah.
year
What's
or
funny?
so. But
The other thing I kept thinking when you were telling all these stories of the automated checkout and stuff, and I was thinking about it, one thing I'm going to be very interested to see is how they continue to develop technology to prevent theft.
well, that I think you're right there, because I just happened to see in the American Banker today
Yeah.
a story about how shoplifting
Yeah.
is just raking retailers over the coals.
Oh
And I
my.
wondered, when I didn't really go real deep because
Yeah.
I was about to do the podcast, but I wondered how much of that has
Yeah.
to do with these automated checkouts.
Well, I was looking at I can't remember the stat now. I have to look it back up, but there was a stat about how if you take the stolen goods from Walmart, it was like the 7th largest retailer in the world or something like that.
I saw that. Yeah,
Might even have been
like
higher
that.
than that. I can't remember. But the thing I was thinking is, well, yeah, they have self-checkout, but at least even with self-checkout, you kind of know, like they have that greeter at the door.
Right.
And
And they have somebody at the self-checkout area
Right.
kind of watching.
Exactly.
people.
And so you would
Right.
feel kind of awkward as a thief. You'd be very awkward and nervous walking towards the door without going through at least the self-checkout.
Right.
But with this new technology, well, I grabbed something off the shelf. Did I pay? How do you know?
Right.
And you know what I mean? So that I think would be
yeah.
very interesting to see how maybe it's like they're going to, print you a little sticker or I don't know. I just wonder
I
what
don't
they're
know
going to do
either,
about
but
that.
I was wondering, maybe there's some way, I remember back in the old days when I did a lot of clothes shopping in,
Right, right.
retail stores, they would have those, and I'm sure they still do have those little things on the clothes.
Right.
Right. And if you would walk out the store and the clerk had forgotten to take that little
Yeah.
thing off,
Yeah.
you would go crazy.
Beep and everything. Yeah.
Bleep, bleep, bleep.
Yeah.
Maybe there'd be something like
Well,
that.
maybe,
that
the other idea too, I thought it could even be a much higher tech. It could be a
Right.
solution like, well, if all this is happening on your phone, then potentially there could be some kind of a device at the door that would be able to say, hey, there's actually nothing, you didn't purchase anything.
Right.
You're
There's
walking
nothing on
out,
your phone.
there's something you're walking out with
Right.
and you didn't purchase anything, so, but then even, well, what if there's one thing I didn't purchase and I purchased everything else? So I think it's going to be that will be interesting to see how that develops as well.
It'd
So
be
we'll
very interesting.
obviously keep everybody up to date on that stuff, but it'll be very interesting to see how all that develops and how long it'll take for all that to get to kind of Main Street America and the small mom and pop shops that our audience tends to service more often.
Yeah, it'll be really interesting. But I do see that there's the bleed down, the bleed
Yeah.
from the majors to the minors, just as Greg was saying today, the taking
Yes.
technology that the big
Yeah.
guys are using and bringing down to the SMB market is
Right.
happening at a much more rapid speed than it ever
Yeah, I
has in
agree.
the past.
I agree. Well, good stuff as always, Patty.
Thanks.